sales translates to money in the account, and that translates to you making this sustainable short-term and long-term.
Giving up looks different for everybody. For me, giving up looked like I would like be really excited and reach out to like a bunch of people, like 50, 100 people. And then I would get a few responses, and then I maybe would follow up really well enough to book those calls. Had a couple calls, didn't get any clients, and I was like, I got so discouraged so fast because it was only been 3 to 4 months. And if you think you'll get like all the answers in 3 months in a business like coaching, and you're on the beginner side, you need to be thinking like 100 calls. You need to be thinking like 6 months, 12 months.
You need to learn to love sales probably just as much as you love coaching.
If you believe salespeople are evil, are you really gonna want to follow up and be a salesperson? Probably you're gonna have a lot of resistance internally to that, right? So really you gotta think about your belief and how you're not gonna be that. What's the difference between what you're doing and what they're doing? There has to be a difference. Coaches Nation, welcome to the Coaches Journey podcast, where we are gonna get in and talk about some awesome topics, including what it means to have a sales process, a client sales system. Because if you don't have that, or you don't have it clearly defined, you'll want to listen today. And I'm here today with my co-host Faisal Insan, and I'm Daniel Fernandez. We run Coaching Mastery Community as leaders, and we are here to help coaches build up their clientele. And one of the biggest ways you can do that is through your sales system. So we're going to talk about that first, and that's super important. But then we're also going to talk about an important part of the system, which is follow-ups. And that includes the question of, when do you stop following up? Do you ever stop following up? Of course you do, but when do you do that? And lastly, we're going to talk about what is arguably the most important piece, which is your offer and how to make that irresistible, or at least more irresistible. So let's dive in. I'm really excited, Faisal, to be here with you today, because I know you are like a rock star at client sales system. So I'm always learning from you personally. So like today is going to be really exciting for not only me, but hopefully all of our listeners today as they build their own client sales system. And maybe you can talk a little bit about why it's so important and how you think about it philosophically. And maybe what the challenges for coaches are in this area.
Thank you, Daniel. I don't know about a rock star, but I'm trying and I'm learning as I'm going. There's still a lot to learn, I feel like. But I think the first piece of it is for most coaches who are going, you're either starting out or you've been running a business for the past few months or even a couple of years. In the beginning, it doesn't hit you how important the sales process is or the sales system is until you start to look at your bank account and there's nothing in there. And then you're like, what am I doing wrong? And it might still not hit you because you're like, okay, let me think about marketing. Let me think about how I can put myself out there. But the bottom line is for you as a coach right now, let's say, where are we? October 21st, 2024. At this point, if you're trying to get clients, or if you're trying to build a business, it's still an industry in development. That means it's very hard for you to go find a job around this. So the only way you're going to actually get clients, which a lot of coaches say, I need to get clients, what you're saying is that I need to build a business. For you to do that is for you to actually make offers to people and offer your valuable program, and you do that recurringly enough so you have money in the bank account, and for this to become sustainable for you. Even if you're saying that you're passionate about this, you want to serve people, you're not going to be able to sustain this if you don't have money in the account. Because here's what's going to happen. If you don't have enough money, you're going to have to work in some other field or work longer in some other field for you to be able to do this. And so the significance of this, for you to be able to sustainably build, to do this work as a coach, if you are passionate about this, your heart is in it, you want to build a lifestyle out of this, you will need to focus. Sales translates to money in the account, and that translates to you making this sustainable short-term and long-term.
Yeah, I love that, Faisal. And maybe you could talk a little bit about kind of the pieces of the sales process too. And I have our 90-day challenge slide available. So if you want, I can pull that up too.
Well, maybe you can share a little bit about your approach, like what happened, like when you were starting out, and we can share a little bit about our story of like how we came to the realization of this, because I realized this a couple of years sooner than I did, and then we'll go to the sales system and we can show like how it looks like.
Yeah, for me, it was a little bit even slower process than for you, Faisal. I think it took me, years to come to terms with, the results that I was seeing as a starting out coach. Um, even though I was excited, I did not know how to sell coaching, and I actually, my biggest, incorrect belief was like, hey, if I'm a good coach, people will buy it, or shouldn't be that hard. Like, how hard could it be to sell coaching? But it's like it's a very different game than anything else I'd ever done in my life. Even selling other things, which I had done sometimes, was easier perhaps than coaching, because coaching feels very personal. And so I just thought, like, people will buy it. That was my sales system. It's like hope. Hope is a strategy. And this hope was not founded on any actual process. Right. And people had given me processes here, run a strategy session or a discovery session and make your offer. But you have to have a good strategy session, and you have to have some skills around, people aren't necessarily going to drop a bunch of money on coaching if you don't help them feel more confident about that process. And part of that is your own confidence. So at the beginning, you're less confident as a coach. And today I feel like I've gone through a whole journey, and my sales process still isn't that great. So you don't have to be perfect at the sales process, but having a sales process is really helpful. Like, for example, I want people to think about, like, this is something I didn't think about, which is, how do you, when somebody comes into your sphere who is a potential lead or client, are you moving them through a standard process for you? Like, do you have a way of doing your discovery sessions? Do you have a way of getting them to the discovery sessions? Do you have a way of getting referrals? Do you have a way of connecting with referrals? Like, are you able to repeat these processes and get really confident at them? And you have a way, and we'll talk about this later about following up. I didn't have any of that. I was just kind of like winging it and thinking it would go really well, but it didn't go well. And I had a lot of challenges. And part of it was my skill as a coach, and had to learn and grow. And part of it was my skill as a salesperson. And so coaching and sales really go together hand in hand, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you are building your own business as a coach. The really big challenge was realizing I had to take on a new identity as a business owner, as a salesperson. And coaching ultimately, and sales is the same thing. If you believe that your program is valuable and you can see the effects that it has on other people, which means you need experience doing it. And some of that experience can be done at lower cost and free before you get to sell higher ticket programs, fine. But building that confidence, because you see the effects, is a really big part of being able to confidently sell. And so seeing yourself as the salesperson who can confidently sell the thing that is going to make a difference, not just to make yourself money, but the thing that's going to make a difference for people. To me, that's what sales is all about. And are you willing to put together a process for yourself that helps facilitate potential clients to go through that journey so they can get those transformations that they're seeking? That's like ultimately what it's about. It's about service to the client. And yes, you're going to make some money by doing that because you're willing to serve at that level.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the, as you're sharing this, like I'm thinking back to like the first couple of years. I didn't think of, to be honest, in the first 2 years that I ran this, I didn't think of sales probably even once.
Yeah.
Not even kidding. Like, think about it. You're running a business and you're not thinking about sales, or you're not thinking about you're not thinking to improve sales, or you're not even thinking about like how this plays out in your business. And a lot of times, like, as like initially as coaches get started, there's so much in there. We, first of all, like, just giving yourself the grace that it this world looks similar. You're sitting in front of a computer, probably similar to any other job that you had. But like Daniel said, it's a really hard thing to sell coaching. Now, one identity is that of a sales, but I want to kind of step back and look at it. Like, you're not just doing coaching. You're actually trying to offer you're trying to create value in the marketplace, and by the marketplace I mean like the bigger free market system that we have in the Western world, actually most of the world at this point. So we have that, which means that you need to take your product or service out there and you share it with people, and ultimately it's the people who are buying it. They decide whether or not it's of value, and they're gonna promote it for you. And the way we frame that is that they're going to refer you to other people. They're going to give you testimonials. They're going to promote you to their friends and family and stuff. That's how businesses work. Think about the last product that you used that you really loved. Like, for example, There's this we bought this membership for this camping in US, and I've been telling everybody about it. Why? Because it's very valuable. And even though they have some things that are not working as well, but I'm like, you know what, this in the value that they're giving in relation to what we're paying is so high that I don't care like what the downsides are.
Yeah,
And
he's
I've been
not kidding because I was at his house 2 weeks ago and
yeah.
he was like, "Damn, let me tell you about this thing."
And we've been telling everybody about it. It's not just one, and they're hearing, oh, thousand trails, thousand trails. And even right now, I'm promoting it. Why am I talking about it? Because the value that they deliver is really high compared to what I'm paying, and that's what it takes to build a business out in the marketplaces. Is that potentially whatever value you're giving is at the least the same as the money they're exchanging with you, but ideally it's like 10 times the value that they're getting on the back end. Now, most coaches don't understand this because they don't look at it from a business frame. They look at it just from a frame of, oh, I want to serve people and I want to, which is a good frame. But then you need to think about the business side of things too, is that you're actually creating a business. So within that big frame, you're creating, first of all, it's very hard to create value in the marketplace. This is why not everybody runs a business. This is why the number of business owners are minimal compared to the people, the consumers. And this is also why most businesses don't sustain long enough, because it's actually fairly hard to run a business out in the marketplace because you actually have to create value, which means the way it's determined is that when somebody goes through that process, they're getting enough value that they're not only saying, you know what, that was worth it for me to spend money on that or invest money in that. And let me tell other people. And that process is actually, you have to tweak your product or service a lot for you to do that. Then comes the sales identity, which Daniel was talking about. We don't even think about that at all because most of what we're taught out like when we start to think about like online coaching and all that stuff, you run into marketers, and marketers want to sell you this one thing that if you just put yourself out there and if you tell enough people, they will buy your product. Maybe, let's say if you had some marketing ability, you did that, but then they still have to go through your process and they still have to get value, which means that you still need to get on a call with them and offer something. And for that, you need a sales process that's repeatable. You're going to do that over and over and over again. And in fact, you need to learn to love sales probably just as much as you love coaching. And in fact, it's actually interchangeable. They're very similar things because in coaching is a process of influence, and so is sales. Coaching, you're convincing the client or helping them get to an understanding to make decisions about their life. You're doing the same thing in sales that would serve them. So we'll kind of walk you through like what our sales process looks like and get you to think about, do you have a process or a system like that for your clients? And maybe Daniel, before we jump into that, you can add some things to that.
Yeah, so I think the thing that jumped out for me is the value creation, right? And I got on a sales call with somebody who was selling something the other day. It was a 45-minute call. I think it was some sort of process that they were using, but I didn't like the process because I got so used to making the sales process itself valuable that I'm always taken aback now by people who just get on call and tell you about their product and they don't even listen to what you're saying, and they have the chance to add some real value and some guidance and some expertise that will help you whether you use their product or not. That's the thing, right? It's like I was expecting more of that. I didn't really get it. I was like, oh yeah, this is not a coach. Yeah, this is a normal salesperson. So coaches have a higher calling of sales, I think, in my opinion, because you're actually working to help people transform their lives, and you have an opportunity to be, to differentiate yourself from a sales point of view. So I want people to take away that, how can you make your sales process valuable even before they buy? Like, are you helping them on the way into buying? Because that's one of the ways you build trust, build a relationship. You actually go out to help. If you get on a call and somebody's just slamming home their product, you're like, you're gonna have resistance. What you want to do is show them you're here to actually like help them change their lives, or whatever it is that you do with them. That's part of what you do, and you can demonstrate that in the process. So let's just quickly, Faisal, walk through that.
But before you move forward, I just want to add something. Like my frame is a little bit different in this. I feel like there are just as good, really good salespeople as coaches are, and they actually change people's lives. But whatever the context of the product or service is.
True.
Like, and for example, even let's carry on the example of the 1,000 trails. The guy that I got on, he came to me through a referral. So we made friends with this couple, and we were asking him how did you guys decide? And he's like, oh, we can connect you with the like best salesperson in the thing. It's a referral because he had served them. And then he got on a call with me, and guess what he did? The first call, I had 30 minutes with him. He just asked me, like, what are you looking for? What kind of camping are you looking
Love
for?
it.
Like, he asked me a lot of questions, and he even said it at the end. He's like, had you not said some of these things, I wouldn't even go forward. But it looks like you're looking for this, this, and this, which is what our product offers. Would you want to know more about this? Which is
Yeah, that's what
exactly
I'm
what a
talking
coach
about.
would do, right?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So he's doing a great job as a salesperson, not being, what I call the typical, why we get in our heads as coaches. It's like what you learn about sales socially in society is like salespeople are bad. They're trying to sell you stuff that you don't need, which is, there's a lot of that. But there are some great salespeople out there who actually know their product is valuable, their service is
Yeah,
valuable.
and that goes with everybody. They're horrible coaches, and they're really good coaches. They're horrible salespeople, and they're really good salespeople. They're
Exactly.
horrible business people. They're really good business. They're horrible rich people. They're really good rich people. They're horrible poor people. They're really good poor people. Like, if you don't want to blanket everything, and then the more you
Yeah.
kind of go out, and by the way, just you talked about changing lives. So for example, with this camping membership, this actually changes our life completely. Like, if this makes it a lot more affordable, we will get to stay in US 5 months out of the year and come back to Canada. That's a completely new life we're starting. Now, they're not giving us coaching or something else, but the fact that we're getting a safe space and a place for our kids to be, for us to explore, that completely changes our life. That's a product and a service that the delivery mode of delivery is different, but the outcome is the same. It changes our life in some way. It helps enhance the quality of our life, saves us time, money, energy. Same thing coaches do. There's no difference. It's just that their product and service is different.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you think that coaching is, if you, sometimes you worry that coaching is not valuable, just think about the crap that people buy for high amounts of money. Like, just like think about that for just 1 second, and you'll be like, dang, it's so much more valuable than that crap. But part of the thing is making your process designed so that they feel that. So let's just walk through that slide real quick, Faisal.
Let's do it.
I'll just bring it up here. This is from our 90-day challenge in Coaching Mastery community. You can go to cmc.coach to join us. But I'm going to walk through the process, the general processes we recommend. It's not fixed in stone. You can do your own version of this, but there's pieces of this you might want to think about for your process, and you can actually execute on this whole process. It's not too difficult, especially if you join us. You can have access to our discovery session masterclass, which is how to do with the discovery session. So let's go share the slide real quick. Can you see that slide, Faisal?
I can.
Okay, so first, you might connect with somebody. This is step one. If you're listening to this on audio, I'll explain it for you too. You don't have to see the slides. Step one is you're connecting with people. This could be through your referrals. This could be through your network, or through your marketing if you have marketing. And then you have some sort of meaningful conversation. And then you might say, hey, should we have a connection call? Could be a very short call to see if I can support you, if we can, help each other, depending what the connection call purpose is. And oftentimes it's, can I support you? And then use that call to determine whether you should send them to a discovery call. And that discovery call may have an intake questionnaire associated with it when you get the booking done as a client. And then in the discovery call, we have a framework. How do you do the discovery call to make it a really great process? And then that discovery call needs to be valuable to the point we're making today. And we have a really great process that makes it valuable by definition. So even if they sign up or not, they'll be like, wow, this guy's or this person is awesome. They really made a difference for me, and they will want to refer you. But then also, after that call, you make sure they take away with them some action, some homework as a result of the call, of the session. And then you said you can send them your testimonials. And I also think you should be talking about, if they got value from the call, who could they refer you to? That's a great place to do that, is during and after that discovery call, integrating referrals. And then you have an offer call with them. Sometimes people do the offer call at the end of the discovery call. Sometimes they do them in a separate call. If you're a newer coach, I highly recommend having a separate call for the offer, so you can focus during your discovery call on adding value, and you can focus during your offer call on creating the program together that you want to take them through, or that they are really excited to go through, rather, I should say. And then when you have your offer, they might say yes. But if they don't, there might be some follow-ups involved. Maybe they're not ready yet. Maybe you didn't address their objections. Maybe you didn't make it clear enough how valuable this would be, or maybe they didn't feel it yet. Maybe they need to to work on some finances or whatever the case may be. Follow-ups, super important. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. And then, of course, if they do say yes, let's say when they say yes, you can collect payment, and then start your coaching program. That's the whole generalized process. There's a lot of pieces of that, a lot of details in that, especially around referrals and testimonials. But at the very least, my opinion is, and I got this from Faisal, so I'll just repeat it, which is every discovery call, I decided after talking to Faisal about this, every discovery call should end in a sale, a testimonial, or a referral, or some powerful feedback for you on how to improve. That's how sort of my takeaway from this process. And I don't want to spend too much more time talking about the sales process because I really want to talk about our second piece here. But Faisal, anything to add on this process, just high level?
Yeah. And for those who are listening to this on the podcast, it will be useful for you to look at the visual piece of it. So go on to our YouTube and just take a screenshot of it because we're actually sharing this. And keep this with you because it sounds simple, but these are like basic things that people don't do. And the point of this whole process is not for you to get clients like every time. Because a lot of coaches get disappointed when they talk to 1, 2, 3, or 10 people. But if you think about it, in sales and in business, you need to share your offer to hundreds of people before they sign up for anything. And this is where marketing can come in. But like the main part of marketing for coaches is to just be visible in front of people. Whether you do that in a networking event, you do that on social media or anywhere, or you're leveraging your own network. What we recommend is to leverage your own network in the beginning because you have enough trust with them. But the point of this whole sales process is to walk enough people through. And what is enough? I'd say at least 100 people through. 100 people through. If you haven't taken 100 people through that sales process and asked for referrals and or testimonials and offered enough of those people, then you haven't actually tried enough. You haven't tried enough to know what's happening. And here's what happens when you offer it to at least 100 people. What ends up happening is you start to see referrals coming in. If your coaching is good, and this is where it gets complicated, is that if you've offered it to 20, 30 people and you're not getting anybody to refer you, you're not getting anybody to say yes to your offer, then there's something wrong with your process. Either your discovery process is not working, either your connection call is not working. So now we can troubleshoot that. But if you don't have any data around all this stuff, then it's hard to troubleshoot. And this is why it has to be a process in a system where you're tracking the number of people you're talking to, you're reaching out to them, you're asking them for referral. So when, for example, when we're working with our clients, we're finding out, well, how many people have you walked through this? Well, maybe 5. Maybe you should do a little bit more. And we can also troubleshoot what's happening in these calls. Are you having trouble in reaching out to them? Are you having trouble in saying what you need to say to get them on a connection call? Are you having a connection call to translate into discovery call? Or have you done 10 discovery calls and you haven't, nobody has said yes, or nobody has given you a referral? Like, we can troubleshoot every piece of that area, but if you don't have a process, the only thing you can troubleshoot is the fact that you're going to feel overwhelmed by the end of the month, and you're not, and the only way
you can't troubleshoot that. You can't troubleshoot that.
You can process it, you can process it, you can feel it, but then you don't know how to fix that in business. And like I love the one part of business is a lot like science. Like in science, you need data. You don't need how you feel in the process. You don't need you actually, none of those are useful. It is useful in the sense that you need to feel confident about what you're doing. And the way you're going to feel confident is if you talk to enough people, if you troubleshoot them and you improve your process and you get feedback in the process, which is what we do in our community. But outside of that, you need data to troubleshoot, and you need enough. You need somebody else who has done this long enough, and you need other people who are experiencing this to bring the data together and see what's working, what's not working, which is why what we recommend is as a coach, you need to have a coach or who has done this for a long time, or you need to have a community or a mix of the two for you to get feedback in the process. So you're working with other coaches who are trying this or other coaches who have done this, so you get feedback in the process. Otherwise, you have no frame of reference. When you talk to a few people, you don't know what's working or not. So for example, when I started in the first couple of years, every year I had this one realization. It was always the same realization. I would always forget it throughout the year, and I would remember it in a conference that I would attend. It was always the same pattern, first 2.5 years. And the realization was this, that after I would leave the event, I'd be like, hey, I need to reach out to a bunch of people and offer them something. and in the process find out if I can get them to connect me with some people. Then I would go home, I would get busy with a bunch of other distractions. Let me work on my social media, let me work on my website, let me work on something else.
Yep.
And then I would come back a year later and I would do this. And like, I forgot it again. Why did I forget it? Because the process of sales is actually very uncomfortable. It's a very vulnerable process. So it's not that we forget it, it's that your mind purposely gets you to avoid the thing because it's uncomfortable. And if you don't have a coach, if you don't have a community, if you don't have peers that are pushing you, challenging you, more than likely, unless you're really, really self-motivated to another level, I wasn't, to be honest, even though I was motivated to build the business, but in the day-to-day, I wasn't as much, then you're probably going to give up in about 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, because you're not getting any business and you're going to focus on something else. And pretty soon it's just going to phase out.
And giving up, like that's accurate. Giving up looks different for everybody. For me, giving up looked like I would like be really excited and reach out to like a bunch of people, like 50, 100 people. And then I would get a few responses. And then I maybe would follow up really well enough to book those calls. Had a couple calls, didn't get any clients. And I was like, I got so discouraged so fast because it was only been 3 to 4 months. And if you think you'll get like all the answers in 3 months in a business like coaching, and you're on the beginner side, you need to be thinking like 100 calls. You need to be thinking like 6 months, 12 months. Is this a career for you? Are you willing to put in the reps? Like when you started whatever career you started, it took you a while to figure out that career path, right? So there's a long-term game here. And if you don't think about it that way, you're going to like give up too early. And I've given up so many times, but fortunately I've come back up and gotten out of that discouragement in big part to CMC and having coaching colleagues. So like, and what we're going to do after this podcast, we have our 90-day challenge on Mondays. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to go meet our community members in Coaching Mastery community who are pro members, and we are going to support them. We're going to figure out what is the thing that's discouraging them and how can we bust through that barrier for them. We're going to troubleshoot their sales process. They all know this framework that we've talked about, and we're going to help them keep going. And a big factor in giving up is that discouragement. So when you have that community of coaches, when you have those that guidance and that help, it's a lot easier not to get discouraged. And honestly, I thought of myself as a person who couldn't get discouraged that easily. But when I look back, I was like, man, I got discouraged so many times. And sometimes you lose a week, sometimes you lose months. I've certainly lost 3 to 6 months focusing on things like a website that I didn't need to create because I didn't want to continue following up because that rejection that I perceived, which is actually just data, as a coach was really, really hard, especially during that transition from corporate to coaching. So anyways, I want to pause there because I want to go to our second part here, because one of the other things that I didn't do well at all, even after I started doing this process a little bit better, was the follow-ups. Because somebody would say no, and I might connect with them, and even now there's people that I could follow up with better, people on my list, because I'm tracking my list now, who I need to get back in touch with more frequently. And so I want to hear from Faisal about the power of intentional follow-ups here. Because this is so important. It's so important. Because I'll just share one quick quote, then I want to hear from you, Faisal, which is like, I don't know the exact quote, but it's like, in sales, it's the person who has the 10 or 12 or 15 touches with you that you're going to buy from, not the person who did something and then followed up maybe once or 0 times. It often takes multiple touches. I had one client who I followed up with every year for like 7 years, and eventually they signed up with me. And I actually owe them some more follow-ups right now because we did our program and then it was time to pause it. And I think it's time to get back in touch. I've stayed in touch with them a little bit, but I'm just realizing now that follow-up is a little bit overdue. So my system probably needs to be improved a little bit, but that's where I'm at. And I think we can be honest about where we're at and get that support. Go ahead, Faisal.
Yeah, and there's a phrase in business that it's a quote that says that the money is in the follow-up. In business and sales, like, and it's one of the truisms in business, so to say. But just circling back to like when you were talking about discouragement before, and I'll connect it to follow up as well. Like when we're starting out as business owners, if you've never ran a business or if you've never run a business like this, it's so easy to feel discouraged. And it's not just because of business, it's because a new thing in your life. You don't have a frame of reference. I'll give the story of my daughter. So my daughter, about a couple of months ago, she developed this interest to do cartwheels. She didn't know how to do cartwheels. She was just trying to flip, and every time she would do it, she would either get hurt or she would fall, and she didn't know how to do it. I don't know how to do, I knew how to do cartwheels. I don't know how to do it anymore, but I have some experience in that. And then I know I've seen enough things to know to then what kind of feedback do I give her? When she's doing it, it's like, you just have to keep trying. You're doing good. You're doing good. This time you did it a little bit better. I did? Okay, yeah, keep doing it. Keep doing it. And she kept doing it, she kept doing it, and she had an intrinsic desire to learn that. And then she asked one of her friends who knew. I'm like, oh, why don't you ask Audrey? Because she keeps doing it all the time. She knows how to do it. Then she worked with her for a little bit. She learned for about 2 months later. Now she's doing one hand, not even two hands cartwheel, but one hand cartwheel. Now she's trying to learn without the hand. Like, but those, if she didn't get those little feedbacks, and if she had given up at some point, she wouldn't have learned it. But that's a human thing. We're
But you know
all
what?
like
You know
that.
what happened when I was visiting Yufi's house? She was doing cartwheels in front of my toddler, and he was like, "Whoa, what's that?" And it's like, "It's a cartwheel." And
Yeah.
then when we took him home, he was like trying to do them himself. It was so awesome. So
Yeah,
she
and that's how
actually
it
was able
spreads.
to inspire him because she stayed encouraged, right?
Yeah. And she learned it because her friend kept doing it and she was doing it really good. And she's like, oh, I want to learn this. And that's how we are as human beings. But the problem is that the frame of reference, like when I was starting out, I don't know what the hell, like if I reach out to 10 people and none of them responded to me, it's like that's a complete failure. Unless I understand business, and that's like nothing in terms of reach outs. So it's like, but I didn't know that. And
And you were isolated too.
I was isolated. So, and that's the problem. Human beings don't work well
Yeah.
in isolation. We don't work well without feedback. Why? Because we're a social species. We're biologically driven to work like that. That's how we survive and thrive. And we forget that because we are kind of given this idea of individuality. That's a really good concept. It works in certain areas, but it doesn't work in these when you're trying to make something work out in the world. It doesn't work alone. Like you need to work with somebody or something to give you a frame of reference. And I mean, just right now, us talking requires a lot of people to work in the background for this to function. People who are setting up, making sure the internet is working. People who are making sure the Zoom is working. Our spouses at home who are taking care of other things. Like there are a lot of people in action for us to be able to just show up on this call and talk to you. So it doesn't. It's we're not alone here. So how this connects to follow ups is. So let's say you reach out to 10 people. The more people you reach out to, the more the follow-ups are going to build up. And in the beginning, you can do this manually. So what does that mean? Like Daniel was saying, you can just have a tracking sheet of some sort, like Excel sheet, or you can do it in Trello or some kind of CRM system.
Could
The
be paper
simplest
too. It could be
could
paper
be
too.
paper too. If you don't want to deal with technology, do it on paper. I don't care. People have been running sales without computers for a long, long time. And you're not reaching out to hundreds of people. You're reaching out to probably a few dozen people in the beginning for you to get a few clients. So you can track that in find the simplest way you can track that. And why is it important? Because here's how it works with our mind. Our mind only gives us feedback in air, at least from what I've learned in my own experience and from what I understand about the mind, is that it only helps us see things more that are comfortable to us. And the process of sales is not a comfortable process. You have to learn a bunch of stuff. I have to learn to ask the right questions. You have to do the uncomfortable thing of taking them through your process and making an offer. And most coaches are uncomfortable making an offer, which means that they're asking for money from the other person. These are uncomfortable things. If you have not been in the sales world, you have not run a business or a business like this, it will not be a comfortable process for you. So if you're not recording the data, you will convince yourself that you're doing all the work, but you're not getting any results. And you will feel frustrated and overwhelmed half the time or most of the time. But if you have data, which means that you're tracking, these are the people that I'm talking to and I'm following up with them. And what Daniel said, in business and marketing and sales, you need to reach out to people multiple times before they accept your offer. And the reason is actually very simple. Most people that you reach out to, they will not trust you with what you're offering because they just don't know. They don't know if this will be valuable for them, and you don't have the skill sets to help them understand how this will be valuable yet. To a degree, you have the baseline skill sets that you're going to develop further, and plus your program is likely a high ticket program too. It takes people longer to make the decision. So if it was like something like a cup that you were offering, like it would not be hard to sell that for like $5 and you convince a bunch of people around and just use it. I'll
They
give you a
might buy
discount.
that in the moment, right?
in the moment, because it's not such a strain, but for most people to put in money for a 3,000, 2,000, or 6,000 or $10,000 program, it requires a little bit more trust and understanding and data for them to understand whether or not they should put money, and they need to get some kind of result out of it. And you don't yet have enough skill sets to help convince them to make that decision for them. And that's the whole point of this whole sales process and follow-up, is that as you're doing this, you're learning the skill sets to do this better, as long as you're getting feedback in the process, because you just simply don't know. And unless you've gone through, taken 100 people through this process, you don't know how it works, to be honest. And even if you, and I encourage everybody who's listening to this to study like sales books related to this, but even if you read 100 sales books but never did anything with it, you still wouldn't be a good salesperson. But if you read 2 or 3 sales books, but then you applied it, you took enough people through your sales process, now you're implementing it.
Or if
And
you read 0 sales books and did 100 sales calls, you'd
that would
still be
still
better
teach
than
you a
reading
lot.
any books, you know?
Yeah. But it does help a lot when you do read sales books, because there are certain things you need to understand about how sales works, that will help you. It's just technical stuff.
Just like everything.
Um, just like anything
But
else.
Faisal, I want to also just like bring it back to the process, right? And the follow-ups. What that's doing is it's building a relationship, and coaching is a relationship-based sales process. And not only is it building skills for you, as Faisal was saying, but it's building trust and relationship, and it's demonstrating that you're going to be there for the client. You're previewing the customer experience they're going to have as a client of yours. So those follow-ups, they're like, does this person actually care about me? Is this person actually following up with me? They're not consciously saying that, but they're feeling it in the back of their head, in their heart. It's like, oh, well, Daniel reached out to me like 10 times. Like, he's clearly got me on a list that he cares about me enough. Or like, there's some reason why he's doing that. And if you think the only reason that somebody would do that is because they want to sell you stuff, well, then you got to shift your identity. It's like, maybe they actually just want to help. Maybe they want to transform your life in the way that you want. So that follow-up process can be so valuable for both your skill building, but also helping the clients build trust towards you.
And there's a mindset thing in here that's very helpful. So this also depends on, like in the beginning, a lot of sales stuff is getting over our own mindset blocks. It's not a, like, this sounds very simple, but most people are in their own way because of some beliefs that they've developed, some philosophies of life, or the lens with which they look at the world. For example, if you have a lens that the way you look at the world is that everybody's trying to take money from me and trying to screw me over, that lens shows up for you, because when you're trying to reach out to people, you're thinking that that person is feeling that. And why would you do that? Because it feels icky, it feels bad, it doesn't feel good. And so this is why somebody like Alex Sermozy might say is like, most of objection handling in the beginning of sales is you would have to deal with your own objections of sales.
Yeah.
And if you have a blanket way of looking at the world where every salesperson is trying to screw you over, you're not going to do very well in sales. And every business in the world is corrupt. Every business is trying to, but which is not the reality. Of course, there's a mix out in the world. And maybe your particular experience, you ran into a bunch of people that did screw you over, and now you've created a lens, or you've heard it from a bunch of other people. And then that's become a part of you, but you're not fully aware of it. And so when you try to sit down there, it's like there's resistance you have. So paying very close attention to that can make a huge difference, just doing that.
Yeah, if you believe salespeople are evil, are you really going to want to follow up and be a salesperson? Probably you're going to have a lot of resistance internally to that, right? So really, you got to think about your belief and how you're not going to be that. What's the difference between what you're doing and what they're doing? There has to be a difference then, right?
Yeah.
So last question, follow-ups, Faisal. Do you ever stop following up? Like, when do you stop following up? Because that's what we said at the beginning. We answer.
Yeah. I like how Brennan Burchard puts it in a funny way. Is like, you follow up until they either tell you to stop following me or stop reaching out to me, or they die. But I mean, of course, he's exaggerating there. But the idea is that you follow up with people, and here's how it looks practically on my system. So the way it works out, I will follow up. Like if somebody referred somebody to me, or somebody's open to getting on a call with me, I'll follow up with them every week, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, probably at some points. Again, depends on my relationship with them, but on average, at least once a week, I'll follow up with them. but here's a detail. And let's say I followed up with them for the next 3 months or 6 months, and or let's say 3 months, and they didn't respond, or they're ghosting me, or they're barely responding. Then I can extend the timeline a little bit. I can put them on a monthly thing, on a monthly follow-up. But I have a reminder there that I need to reach out to them. In the meantime, I'm also reaching out to other people. So it's not like that was the only person I was reaching out to. I'm also reaching out to other people. Now, as my system has gotten more complex, and I want coaches to think long term as well. This is not going to be just business all of like the rest of your life. You're going to build systems here. You're going to hire people. You're going to do a lot of stuff here. So, for example, the way it looks like is my follow-ups are not always personal, me reaching out to them. Sometimes it's my VA reaching out to them. Sometimes it's my newsletter. Sometimes it's my workshops. Like there are a lot of other things that are built up, but by the time I get to the end of the week, they might have like 6-7 touch points with me. And so my sales process shortcuts, which means that, for example, you mentioned you reach out to somebody once a year. If we took that as a reference, now imagine you reach out to that person 10 times in a
Totally.
month versus in a year, in 7 years. That person might have felt, if you did this the right way, that, you know what, this person cares about me, this person is sending me value, this person is trying to support me. That person might have signed up in 2 years or in 1 year versus 7 years.
Yeah, actually, now thinking about it, that person, it was like every 6 months that we have a reach out of some sort. And at the beginning, it was actually a little more frequent. But I think I slowed it down because they weren't ready, and that's okay. But I could have been even more frequent, and I think they would have signed up a lot earlier. And here's the thing: I think they would benefit from another round of coaching. And so, like, I could actually, I wrote down while you were talking about Sal, I have my follow up list. I don't have it separated between, who are the people on the weekly plan and the monthly plan, right? And so this person, I'm actually going to move them back into the weekly plan to just get back in touch because I actually really do care about them. I actually can see the difference we made in their lives. And I actually can see what we could do again based on where they were at last time I talked. So I really do want to make the difference for them. And I think they can see what the difference would be because they already have that experience. So maybe it's time to put them back in the weekly. And maybe if they're not ready for another round, or if they, if I can support them in the meantime a little bit on the weekly basis, then maybe they'll go to the monthly, or maybe they'll join the program again. I'm not attached. And that's another piece about follow-ups. You're not here to be attached to you making money. You're here to be of service and to demonstrate that you care and build that relationship. And then when the time is right, and you make those invitations, they will trust you and they will be ready to go on the journey with you. And that's going to change their lives, right? It's not about, oh, I just want to get them for all the money they're worth. That's not really not what it's about. And that's a tension for coaches to really navigate.
And that's actually just how business works. If you think about an average, like if you think about a company, you always get some kind of newsletter from them. You're always getting email. You're always getting some kind of promotion. Now, they're not attached to you personally going there, and they don't feel any way that, oh, why didn't this person respond, or why didn't this person unsubscribe? They're reaching out to enough people that they constantly, it's a system. So the problem with coaching is that because it feels so personal, and you haven't done this long enough as a business. So every time you follow up person or somebody didn't respond, you might take it personally and you might stop. And that's the thing to get over. But that thing takes experience and a mindset shift that, hey, you know what? This is just what it takes to build a business, is to reach out. And it's not like you're reaching out to people like, hey, did you look at my email? You're not just doing that. You're sending value to them. This is where content comes in. This is where resources comes in. Maybe this is where a short video you record for them, or maybe this is where a newsletter you send to them. And that some of the stuff might be later, or somebody else's article you sent to them. Hey, I was just thinking about our last session. We were talking about this. And I literally, even to this day, I do that. Even though I have my own content, once in a while I'll send somebody else's content, be like, hey, I know you went through this. I love the series on heartbreak, and I sent it to my clients, and they're like, I got so much out of it. Thank you for thinking about me. Like that was valuable to them, but the point was not the content itself. The point was that they feel cared for and supported by me, whether it was a potential client or a current client. The point is that we build a system where we reach out to people regardless of what they do on the other side. So either they are buying your product, or they're connecting you with somebody else. So the other side of it is you're also helping them keep you top of mind, because if somebody has gotten any value from you, they're talking to other people around them. Like if you're top of mind, it will come up in a conversation. How did this person? Oh, this person has been reaching out to me. I did coaching, and they're trying to make sense of it. And within that conversation, if they've gotten value, they will convince themselves. But
Yeah.
if they're not top of mind, like they're not thinking about it. Most people are too busy. There's so much data coming at them. There's so much information coming at them. They're not even thinking about you after a week, even if you've served them a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally think that's true, and actually, just gave me an idea that we've talked about before. Reminded me of, uh, it doesn't have to be you don't have to reach out for something that you created. You can reach out with something somebody else created. Hey, here's an article that's really related to the thing we talked about, or here's a meme or whatever it is that's like going to help them and be valuable to them, not just a joke, but something relevant to what you bring to them. That can keep you top of mind. Another thing that just occurred to me as well is like, hey, it just occurred to me to think about somebody who's in my pipeline of people I can help. They were trying to make a transition from the thing they're doing to the stream they have. They're not making progress. And I followed up with them already like 12 times. I'm not getting a lot of response. And so I was just thinking about them. And what I could do is just record a video about the general case of what they're doing, post it on social media to help a lot of people, and then say, hey, send it to them. Hey, the person I'm talking about in this video is you. I think you
Yeah.
need to hear this. And that would be a great follow up because you're leveraging it for social media, but it doesn't have to be so extensive. It could be like, hey, I'm thinking about you. Here's what I thought. You need to
That
hear it.
those are some of the best social media content anyway, because you're talking to a person you know
It's a real
what
person
problem
with
they
a
have,
real.
but then you're also sharing it with other people too.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
really
Okay.
like,
But I need to
love
pause this
that.
because I want to get to part 3 about offers. Like, how can, your sales process will work up to the point where you don't have an offer. Like you bring these people to the sales process and you get them on the discovery call. They're super excited and you don't know what to do. Like, what do I offer them? And how do you make your offer more irresistible to the client? So, Faisal, could you just talk about that for a few minutes before we have to wrap up here?
So first of all, you need to have an offer like that. It sounds very basic, but
There's
I've
some
talked to a lot
examples.
of coaches. I've talked to a lot of coaches. Like I go to events, and I remember talking to this one coach who had like 10,000 followers on social media, and I was really excited because I don't have that yet. So and I'm asking her all these questions, and I'm assuming she has really good offer. I'm like, so. And I went to the business. I'm like, okay, what's your offer? Like, what's the conversion rate and all that stuff? And she kind of paused. She's like, I don't have an offer. Like, what? You have 10,000 followers and you don't have an offer? Like, what are you giving? He's like, well, I'm collecting some Facebook stars. It was a new thing, and they were giving some very minimal. It's a lot like
It's
YouTube
not
monetize.
really a business, just sort of a profile.
Yeah, and there was no offer, and I was a little bit kind of taken aback. I'm like, huh. I think you would benefit a lot from having an offer because more than likely, out of those 10,000 people that have been following you, that you've established a relationship with them for all these years, at the least 100 of them will want to buy something from you, whatever that offer is. But she had no offers because she had no concept of an offer, or she was hesitating for whatever reason. But the point here I'm making is that a lot of coaches might not even have a clear offer, and they're kind of not even making a decision on it because I don't know what to charge and how much. To be honest, I don't care what you charge. Pick a number that feels good for you emotionally, whether it's $50 a session or $100 a session or whatever, $200 a session. Put it as a number, make it a package. We usually recommend a package for at least 3 months. Put it in a package and make that offer. And how you make it irresistible as a starting point is to make that offer enough time so you understand how people are receiving it and how you feel in the process. Because the irresistible part, like there are not a lot of bells and whistles in the coaching offer in the beginning for you to make it. And at some point, it's going to develop because you're going to develop a lot of bonuses and all that stuff. But in the beginning, it's just the way you deliver that thing. You're going to have a lot of problems with that. It's the way you speak about it. It's the way you share it. It's going to be so clunky that you need to just improve that process. It's the way you ask questions. Is the way you deal with objections, or even just saying that, hey, this is it. Like the first few times, I had a hard time just saying the number, let alone like these are very basic things. Like I couldn't even say the number. It's for $2,000. I would hesitate, and that my
They're
hesitation
basic, but they're
cost me.
so advanced at the beginning. They're so advanced. There's like a whole other level. This is like doesn't feel basic to a newer coach, right? Like say
It's not
number.
because me just saying $2,000, I would hesitate, and it would make the client question whether or not I even can help them or there's value because I didn't have confidence in my own product or service.
Do you ever go? It's $2,000, but I can make if it doesn't work for you, I can make it work. Like they're like, wait.
Yeah, but
The
even worse,
price
like
maker.
I'll be like, it's $2,000 or even $500, and I'll just go quiet, and it would make it awkward, and I wouldn't know what to ask. Like
You're
there's so
awkward
many
about
little
it.
stuff.
You're awkward. You're not confident and clear in your offer. I was just talking to somebody the other day who was like doing a package for somebody, and they were like, I think I'm gonna charge 2,000, maybe 2,500, but I don't know if that's gonna work for them. And so like I'm gonna say like, hey, if that doesn't work for you, let me know and we can work it out, because they already started the work, right? That they were doing for them. This wasn't even coaching.
But that's
And
even more advanced. If you get to a point where you're kind of starting to negotiate with a client, even if you don't offer it for 2,500, you offer it for 2,000 or that's still a positive thing. I had a hard time even doing that. But if
but
you
but
take it to
but
another level,
yeah, no, what
so
I was saying was in that process, I said like, hey, before you start like detracting from your own offer and saying like, hey, if that doesn't work for you, 2,500, just like figure out how valuable is this for the client. We figured out it was very valuable for the client, and so they said maybe it should be 3,000. I said, yeah, go for that. But here's what you
yeah.
do: you just say, here's what I'm going to charge you, and if they say yes, just say great, because it's that valuable. You don't have to discount your own offer immediately. Like you can just be confident in the value that it is by doing that inner work for yourself, and then give them the opportunity to say yes. And if that doesn't work for them, you can work with them, you can negotiate with them, but don't hurt yourself because you're not confident.
Go ahead, Daniel.
No. So I think I just we need to wrap up here. That's why I'm just like trying to tie this all in a bow. So we talked today about 3 kind of key pieces of sales process. There's so many other pieces of it. And if you're not clear on your offer, that's why we have our 90-day challenge. We help people with their whole sales process, including their offer. Come join us at cmc.coach and become a pro member. And you can join us on a regular weekly basis almost, that we do 4-month sessions where we take our members and we troubleshoot their sales process. If they're not clear on their offer, we get them clearer on their offer. And if you do that work week after week with us, you are certain to like make that progress so much faster than what I did. It took years. I could have shaved years and years off my process of learning. But we talked today about that sales process, how to get people to that discovery call, and we'll help you in Coaching Mastery community learn what to do in that discovery call, and then how to take people through that follow-up. That was what we talked about second. Follow-up until they tell you to stop. Because you're trying to help, not because you're trying to pester. If you think you're trying to pester people, you're not doing the follow-ups in a service-oriented, value-oriented way, perhaps. If it's valuable for them, stand confident in that value. And then lastly, make your offers irresistible by, like as Faisal said, doing them over and over and over and over again until you get confident, until you can speak to that value, and don't undercut yourself. Figure out what you're going to charge and charge it, and say that number, be confident. And don't be awkward. And that takes practice. So go ahead and practice it. You can practice it with friends, or you can practice it on the calls with your clients to get used to the reps of doing that. Anything else to add before we wrap up, Faisal? Last words?
I think that was great, and make sure you share this with a coach, because most coaches are struggling with this. They don't even know how to think about it. So this might actually help them start the process of offering their services and supporting others in the process.
Awesome. Well, thank you for listening with us on our podcast today at the Coach's Journey podcast. If you'd like to join Coaching Mastery community to get more support on your sales process, go to cmc.coach and we will support you in that community. And think about becoming a pro member so you can get that live in-person support that we're talking about, so that you can stay encouraged and supported in your learning process. All right. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time on the Coach's Journey podcast.